Dear students, now I'm here with the address by Marga Minko, Points to Ponder. The narrator went to the house number 46 Marconi Street to meet Mrs. Dorling. To whom? To Mrs. Dorling. The narrator is the daughter of Mrs. S. Only initial is theirs, Mrs. S. Went there in the search of the belongings of her dead mother. Mrs. Dorling did not seem to recognize her, and she was surprised to see her there and alive. Mrs. Dorling could do nothing for the narrator and asked her to come another time. She was not in the mood to interact with her. But the narrator, Marga Minko, remembered when Mrs. Dorling first came to their house. It was the first half of the war when Mrs. Dorling's visit became suddenly frequent to her house. Mrs. Dorling would leave narrator's house with one thing or the other to keep during war. In this way, all the silver cutlery, antique plates, vases were taken away by her. Mrs. S. told her daughter that Mrs. Dorling herself insisted that she wanted to save all her nice things during the war. Many years passed, the war was over. The narrator waited for a long time to visit Mr. Dorling to know whereabouts of her mother's belonging. It was the second visit of the narrator to Mrs. Dorling's house. This time she did not meet her, but only her daughter, a young girl of 15 years. The narrator sat down to wait for Mrs. Dorling. All things were there: the old-fashioned candle holder, the silver cutlery, the vases, the antique plates. Once they belonged to the narrator's mother. Mrs. Dorling had brought them there, saying that she is securing them during war. The narrator found herself in the midst of her mother's things, but they were tastelessly arranged in the strange and unpleasant atmosphere. Then suddenly the narrator jumped up as it was a time for her train. She came out of the house and looked up the nameplate again, the address. Although the address was correct, 46 Marconi Street, Holland. But the narrator determined to forget the address. She did not want to remember it and would not go back there anymore. Why she reacted in this manner? Why she reacted in this manner? It is because, no doubt, all objects that once belonged to her mother were there, but the true owner of the things was no more in this world. So remember, persons are more important than their possessions. Thank you.